All right, here's, you have the slide. This is everything you need to know. And let me just pause for a second and ask you some. So are you timing, have you been timing this? You're going to have to clue me as to when 80 minutes is up? Or, okay, thanks. All right, so everything you need to know. Here is our friend, the hippocampus. Let me start here. Here's the human brain. And the view that you're seeing is this. I'm going to walk over here for a moment just for this reason. So you're seeing the brain this way. This is the side of the head. So this is the front of the brain here and the back of the brain here. And the hippocampus is buried in this temporal lobe region of the brain. The brain itself weighs about 3 to 4 pounds. Not a very heavy structure. It weighs somewhat less, we think, in lawyers, but we're not sure about that. Sorry. That was just a dig, sorry. All right, so that's what the human brain, a normal human brain looks like. You'll see what an Alzheimer's brain looks like in just a few minutes, and you'll be stunned at how the change occurs. This is, again, a normal human brain here on the right-hand side, but a different view, and that view is as follows. If I'm facing you like this, if this were a laser beam, I could slice down here, take off the front of my face. The surface that you'd be looking at face on is this. So this is the right side of my brain. This is the left side of my brain, the top and the bottom. And right in here, outlined in white, is our friend, the hippocampus, one on each side of the brain. This is the part of the brain important for what we refer to as declarative memory, the ability simply to declare, to tell the story. What happened? What did you have for breakfast this morning? That's declarative memory. What did you say in a phone call yesterday? That's declarative memory. Your ability simply to recount the facts and events of your life, that's what the hippocampus does. And if you lose your hippocampus, as in the case of HM, you have no ability to do that. And so you can't recount having seen me just a little bit ago. You can't recount what happened yesterday. For Henry, if he were watching a TV program, what do you think would happen to Henry? He'd lose track of the program. The commercial comes on, and then the program comes back. He has no idea who the people are, what the characters are, who's committed what crime. No idea. If he reads a book, and he puts the book down, he has to start the book all over again. That's the profoundness of his. Now, not everybody is profoundly amnesic like Henry was, but that's what can happen when you have no hippocampus. So this structure is really critical. This little curve here is referred to as the forgetting curve. This is what happens normally in memory. This is not impaired memory at all. This is what happens to our memories generally. And I know the scale here is too small for you to see. I'm not sure how it comes out on the reprints. But the point here is a simple one, and that is within 24 hours, you've lost about 50 or 60% of what you have learned. Within 1 hour, you've lost a significant amount. So you've already forgotten a lot of what I've told you. I don't even know why I'm doing this.
So what was the percentage after 24 hours?
It's about 50%. Yeah, and it depends again on the material. It depends. What was the percentage? The percentage was about 50%. And it depends on the material itself and how well you've... we can change this curve, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. You can slow down the forgetting rate. There are lots of things we can do to do that, and lots of things you can do with Alzheimer's patients to do that. Despite the frustration that you have with Alzheimer's patients, there are some things you can do that will help slow down the forgetting for those individuals. And we'll talk about those. Yes, ma'am?
Is that for everyone, like 10-year-olds or 60-year-olds?
Is this forgetting curve for everyone, like 10-year-olds and 60-year-olds? So in principle, yes. It's an average kind of forgetting curve for what happens in terms of the neural connectivity and activity in a brain. It doesn't matter really whether it's 10 years old or 80 years old. It's going to be different for individuals who have aged because they have some problems. So it's probably not going to be exactly the same thing. Forgetting gets enhanced as we age. And for youngsters, their attention and other things get in the way, so their curve can be a little bit more rapid to begin with as well. But in principle, this is the way the nervous system works. All this is illustrating is how the nervous system generally works. But yeah, there are going to be some variations on the theme depending on where you are in your lifespan. So, all right, so the bottom here, these three boxes, are where the action is and what we will refer to throughout the rest of the day. And these boxes refer to encoding, consolidation and storage, and retrieval. These are the three stages that go on in our memory processes. Encoding is the phase that you're in right now. As you are watching me, as you are listening to me, as you're looking at the slides, you are encoding that information. Various aspects of your cortical regions, your visual cortex is doing its encoding, your auditory cortex is doing its encoding, your affect, the parts of the brain important for affect and emotion and your feeling, all of that is being encoded at this moment as this is happening. All of that is feeding into the hippocampus, and the hippocampus then is going to be consolidating and storing that information. The hippocampus becomes critical for this. If you have no hippocampus, you can encode stuff, but it doesn't go anywhere. And the final stage is the retrieval stage, and this is where the action is in many ways, because if you're taking a test, this is what you're being asked to do. You're asked to retrieve the information. You're going to have a test, by the way, at the end of the session today, as I understand. There's a 10-word multiple choice test that you have to answer. Retrieval is the important part because you have to then get access to all that information that you encoded and that you consolidated and stored away somewhere. Now, retrieval is the way we typically use to discover memory problems because you have problems retrieving the information. If I ask you what you had for breakfast this morning, most of you are going to be able to remember it, but if I asked Henry what he had for breakfast this morning, he is not going to be able to remember it. If you ask an Alzheimer's patient what they had for breakfast earlier today, unlikely they're going to be able to retrieve that information. Now, for Alzheimer's disease and other kinds of conditions like that, mild cognitive impairment and other things, it turns out the problem lies here in this middle box in consolidation and storage. Their encoding, at least for the early stages of the disease, is perfectly fine. They have no problem getting information in, but there is difficulty and impairment in the function of the hippocampus, where all that information is feeding into, and accordingly, consolidation doesn't work very well. So at the time of retrieval, they're going to have a problem.